Every day this week, Railwatch is watching how a railway works, looking over the shoulders of the people who run the East Coast main line on British Rail's eastern region and going behind the scenes where us, the travelling public, normally never have an opportunity to look. A good afternoon to you. We're live again from York. British Rail in the headlines today. The steamer's story continues. People asking for patrols and panic buttons on board trains now. On the lighter side of British Rail life, a rather astute driver yesterday did some good PR work. Apparently a passenger had been in the toilet when he should have been getting off at the station, missed his station, and a few minutes later they reversed the train back into the station and let him off, with no inconvenience, of course, to other passengers. And there was the story also, I don't know whether you caught that, of Lewis in Sussex yesterday. A meteorite landed, for the first time in 20 years in Britain, a meteorite landed on Earth, and it managed to hit a British Rail platform. Didn't injure anybody, and apparently didn't delay any trains either. Amongst British Rail's many customers today, Prince Charles. He arrived by the Royal train at 10 o'clock this morning at Todmorden in the Pennines on his way to visit business in the community projects in Calderdale. The Prince is president of the organisation, and this afternoon he's making other visits in Bradford. Today on Railwatch, we are following the progress of one particular train, our train. It's called BBC TV Railwatch. There's its serial number for the train spotters. It's 43108. We saw it yesterday on an ordinary scheduled journey down line from King's Cross in London to Leeds. And that's one of the strange things that we discover about railways, because it doesn't matter geographically what direction you're travelling in, or even which way across the map page your journey goes. If you're going to London, you're going up in the railway world, and if you're not, you're going down. Complain to BR, not to us. We have a lot of miles to cover today in every sense, a lot of drama in today's programme, so let's get on with the journey by going back just a little in time to breakfast time this morning.
Well, things are pretty much getting back to normal here after a fairly hectic night because of high winds in the north of England and Scotland. I've just been on the telephone to Glasgow Regional Control, who have had severe problems. High winds cause many of their lines to be blocked by fallen trees. Most of those have been cleared now, but some branch lines in Scotland are still closed because the weather conditions are too severe even for the maintenance crews to attend. The power had to be switched off on one line because a roof was blown onto the overhead cables, and a train's pantograph was damaged by high winds, and the pantograph, which picks up the current from the overhead wires, then damaged those overhead wires. And some of the overhead wires actually did come down in the night. That's mostly on the west coast. The east coast main line is running quite well this morning. Main problems overnight has been level crossing barriers blowing up, by which I don't mean exploding, I mean the wind has caused them to lift. That has then made the signals for the trains triggered red, which has caused some delays. The 525 from Newcastle to King's Cross, that's the Cleveland executive, hit something on the line which damaged the brake pipe. The driver was able to make repairs to that brake pipe on the line and only is running a delay of 17 minutes now. And the 735 service from Newcastle to King's Cross had a 3-minute delay because a passenger had to be detrained, which means Transport Police had to get him off the train because he didn't have a ticket. Our own Railwatch diesel running the 8 o'clock Talisman service from King's Cross to Edinburgh left King's Cross dead on time.
And just a few more seconds before it leaves for our crew to position themselves on board. Reporter is Penny Bustin. We have a camera in the cab. Let's go.
Here we are. It's just before 8 o'clock and we're ready for the journey.
Signal is green. We've got a maximum speed limit of 15 miles an hour whilst we go into Gasworks Tunnel.
John Swaby, the driver there, of course, we're following him through this week, and we'll come back to the train journey later on. We've got a helicopter up there to follow it as well, so it's going to be good stuff this afternoon. Today, of course, is St. Valentine's Day. If you're one of the millions of people who this morning got a Valentine's card from somewhere else in the country, chances are that some of its journey, at least, was on a train last night. Our man on the night shift at Railwatch is Malcolm McCaig. Now, we don't know if his wife even got a Valentine card today, or if she did get one, whether it came from Malcolm. but we did see him posting one, honestly, we did.
Late as usual, but into the world's fastest postbox, furthermore.
This loving message I have sent is on its way by mail. The words inside sincerely meant, I love you, British Rail. With air indoors safely at home, I'm back on the Railwatch night shift aboard a postbox that can do 110 miles an hour as the railway plays its part in sorting the morning mail. Much of the mail that comes on board the train has already been sorted by the time it's loaded, but first-class letters are still handled as the train goes down the track. They used to have a device engagingly known simply as the apparatus on the outside of the travelling post office to swing bags on boards with the train on the move. Modern HSTs are too fast for that, but continuing sorting while the train is rolling is a productive double use of the time the mail has to travel anyway. And faster trains mean time for extra stops to load more bags than could be handled the old way. This one will go all the way to Carlisle, the letters being sorted as she goes down the line. By the time she gets there, the mail will again have all been put in its bags, ready to be offloaded. The car itself will be detached, put in the siding, and then put onto the northbound train. The TPOs, as they're called, work every night of every week. But tonight, this one has had even more than its usual share. There's an especial urgency by part of the night shift tonight on Edinburgh's Waverley Station. Of course, the train always carries some mail, but tonight, because of the exceptional weather that Scotland and the north of England have been having, many of the aircraft that would be flying a large part of the mail south have been grounded. Tonight, then, the train is having to take a very special part of the strain.
And what a stormy night it was as well. If you're following Railwatch through this week, good idea to have a map book handy, because we are just whizzing you up and down the east coast of Britain quicker than British Rail can ever hope to do, and you can just check out the locations as you go through the programme. We'll shortly be joining Paul Coyer at Doncaster Signalling Centre. That's from where we'll follow this morning's Talisman, our train, on its journey north. Now, that signalling centre at Doncaster is a highly complex installation. It uses sophisticated modern electronic techniques. Signalling is, after all, crucial to running a safe railway. But it was different at the beginning of the railway age 150 years ago. Rob Curling has been to the National Railway Museum here in York to find out more.
When the world's first railway, the Stockton and Darlington, opened in 1825, a man on horseback rode ahead of the train carrying a red flag. Right from the beginning, railways were safety conscious. For a time, it was thought that the railways could be run like an open road. In other words, as long as the driver kept a good lookout, then no other precautions were necessary. But as speeds increased, and with only a very primitive form of braking system, it quickly became clear that something else was needed. At first, ex-servicemen were recruited to stand by the line, giving hand signals to the driver, telling him how long it was since the preceding train had passed. And believe it or not, they were called policemen. The idea was that if the first train had gone through less than 5 minutes before, then the second driver would receive the danger sign. Less than 10 minutes and he'd get a caution, and after 15 minutes he'd get the all clear. But that meant that the all clear could be given even if the first train had broken down just around the corner. So after a few rather serious mishaps, this time interval of signalling had to be replaced by something better. The new system was the space interval, or block system, whereby the signals were held at danger until the preceding train had travelled a known distance ahead of the second, and that's the system in use today. By that time, hand signals had been replaced by semaphore arms mounted on posts controlled by wires and levers from a cabin, and the job of the signalman was created. Another refinement introduced, again after the experience of some serious mishaps, was a system of interlocking the operation of points and signals to make sure that they couldn't be set in conflict. Here's a simple demonstration, a set of points and signals controlling a turnout from a main line. Now, with both sets of signals set at danger, I can switch the points from the main line to the branch. But before I can release the branch line signal, I have to lock the points in place. Now I can't operate the mainline signal, but I can release the branch line. Now once that is set at clear, I can't unlock the points until both signals are reset at danger. Now modern electronic signal boxes still use this same fail-safe system, although many more safety refinements have been added.
Thank you, Rob. That's the theory of it all. We're going to put that into practice now and rejoin our train shortly. I just want to point something out to you here. We have a camera crew on board the train in the cab, but we're obviously not talking to the driver. That would be very dangerous to distract him from his work. We do have on board the train a technical riding inspector who goes with every train. This one's called John Harradine. Where is our train now? Penny Bustin.
Here we are. We're just emerging from the Stoke Tunnel and entering the Doncaster signalling area.
Well, we've just picked up the Railwatch train. There it is, 1S16. It's just gone through the Stoke Tunnel there. With me is Paul Irving, who's the signal box supervisor. We've got the train now. You've got to look after it for roughly how long?
We'll look after it for about 45-50 minutes, Paul, until it passes off our patch north of Doncaster.
Well, perhaps we better first of all explain this code 1S16. Why is it called the 1S16?
Well, it's a 4-digit identification number, which the first digit 1 is a Class 1 express passenger train. S indicates it's an interregional train terminating in the Scottish region, and the last 2 digits identify that particular service.
Right, so you don't refer to it by a time of leaving King's Cross or by the engine number or anything like that. From now on until it leaves you, it's known as 1S16.
That's right, and if we refer to that train in any of our communications, everyone knows which train we're talking about.
Okay, well, Nick is setting routes there as we speak. If we can just glance over his shoulder, explain to me how we know where the train is at any one time, apart from the digits appearing in the train describer there.
Well, the train appears on the railway by the red lights. You can see the red lights moving along. They're actually either side of 1S16's identifying number, and as the train moves along, the red lights move along and the identifying number moves along.
You can hear the AWS warning going. John is reacting to that and cancelling that out. If he failed to do that, of course the brakes would apply automatically.
They're probably turning him in.
There must be more than one. Yeah.
Might be turning him in, unless he's getting checked off as 1 3 signals back.
Yes, we've still got a red ahead.
He's that thing again from Liverpool.
What's that approaching us?
Looks like a locomotive haul train.
Yes, Liverpool to Norwich, I think.
Yes, it's quite possibly the Liverpool to Norwich, yeah.
We seem to be almost still, yet we're doing, what, 40 miles an hour?
Yes, that's quite true. The appreciation of speed when you come down to, 30 now, from 125 or 115, is quite remarkable. And this is a danger area for drivers when they're approaching red signals and station stops. So the importance of a good working speedo is important. We've got a yellow signal now and the train ahead is moving slowly. John's increasing speed.
Could this make us late into York?
We were running about 1 minute late when we come past Stoke. Although we've got some recovery time, it's difficult to say at this stage. We're trying to do our best.
No problem so far. Are we running to time?
2 minutes late at Stoke.
So what would cause that, do you think?
Probably a temporary speed restriction on the Peterborough area, but what happens, the timetable's constructed so that there's extra time approaching Doncaster, and you should be able to pick that time up quite easily.
Can I just pick up one of these things here? I notice we've got a lot of these little red blocks here. They're almost like kiddies' building bricks. What do you use these for?
The reminder appliances. They go back to the early days of railways when signalman had to make sure he didn't move a set of points or change a signal. And in order to do that, he would place that over the control for the point or the signal. Mm-hmm. And these are the modern day versions of them. Lever collars, they used to be called.
There is a different form here. Sorry, Nick, can I... Oh, Nick's away on the phone again. Good grief, let's all go here. Let's have a look at this thing here now. What is this?
This is for the actual button on the panel which controls the signal, and if you put that over any button on the panel, you cannot actually press the button. It stops you doing it.
So this goes over the famous perspex switch?
That's right.
Right. Okay. So he's back on the phone again. 1S16, where is it now?
1S16 is just approaching Grantham. Is due through Grantham at 6 minutes past 9, so we're still 2 minutes late. There is, in fact, an 80 miles an hour temporary speed restriction on just south of Grantham, so that'll have lost him perhaps another 3/4 of a minute or so.
Black and white.
That's the black and white signal. Banner repeater.
Told you the signal's clear around the corner. There you go, 2 yellows.
We've got a 2
Green
yellows.
now.
Change to green.
Yeah, no winding it up.
It's just increasing speed now.
Here's a 91. Sorry, John.
The Class 91 is just going past now. You'll see it's in a push-pull mode with the Class 91 on the rear. In the distance you can see the approaches to Grantham Station. Again we've got adverse signals. So it's quite likely that the train is still ahead of us. There was a possibility that they could have diverted the train off onto the platform line, but don't appear to have done so.
Let's just try and explain a little bit of what happens as 1S16 jumps from one window to another. What sort of lights will change here in terms of the signals that the driver will see on the track?
Well, the signals that the driver sees, they're already in the proceed position for him. But when the train passes the signal, that signal actually goes to danger to protect that train. And the signals behind the train, immediately behind is red, and then 1 yellow, 2 yellows, and green as you get further behind the train.
So you don't have red, amber, green then? You have red,
2 yellows,
1 yellow,
one yellow and then the red.
Right. So as soon as the train's gone through, the lights go to red, so nothing can come up immediately
Right.
at its
You
back.
can see that happening now. Train's just past 23 signal, Barrowby Road at Grantham. 23 signal has gone to danger on the panel.
Right. So
And-
on the track, the driver coming at the back will see a red light.
If there was another train there,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
You see, if you look at the situation here, 1D33, the Yorkshire Pullman, just past number 35 signal at Barkston South. So that signal is at red. Number 33 is at 1 yellow. Number 29 is at 2 yellows. And number 27, which 1S16 drivers are looking at, is a green.
Right.
And these trains are more or less moving at the same speed, so they should maintain that sort of spaced interval between them.
John's increasing the speed at the moment up to the maximum line speed of 125. Seem to be running under the clear signals, passing a parcels train on the right, or by a Class 47 locomotive. We're still under the control of Doncaster signal box, although just a few miles ahead is a gate box. It's called Claypole, and they will control the crossings in that vicinity. We've got the odd minor pedestrian crossing with all the relevant warning signs.
Okay, how are we doing then with 1S16? Where are we approaching now?
Well, we're approaching Hupham now, which is 111 miles from King's Cross. And she should be just getting onto the high-speed stretch now. It's downhill most of the way from Stoke Tunnel until you get to Claypole. This is the Claypole area. And then it's more or less level across the Trent Valley towards Carlton, which of course we'll see as the train progresses further along.
Now, this is a pretty straightforward stretch here, isn't it? You're not having to change points or anything like that. It's more or less just going as the crow flies.
That's right. Now, as long as you've got 2 or 3 trains all going on the same route, then the signalman's actions tend to be confined to observing his track circuits, ensuring that the train's keeping moving and that there's no problems.
Still proceeding along at 125, still on the approaches to Newark. Running under clear signals.
This is a good job for you, Ron, isn't it? What time do you get back? 3 o'clock?
The majority of these signals along the track are automatic. They're operated by the train ahead through track circuiting. Every now and then the signalman's got an override feature that you can replace signals to danger in emergency. As you can see, we're passing over various crossings. Once again, we've got another gate box here. Barnby Lane. You can remotely monitor some of these crossings through closed-circuit television, as well as the one he's actually at. Once we get through Newark, we've got a railway that crosses on the level. There's a maximum speed of 100 miles an hour there. It's quite unique because we've not got many of these rail level crossings. Johnny's easing off the controller at the moment in abeyance to that. And then we'll begin to apply the brake. This is Newark Station.
And we're passing through here at, what, 110 miles an hour?
Yeah. Coming down to 100 miles an hour for this rail level crossing. And then we'll pass over the River Trent via a girder bridge.
I've noticed that they're all multicoloured. It almost looks like a tube map of London here. What's the significance of the colours?
Well, it's the track circuits, which are the electrical circuits which were referred to yesterday. Downlines generally are coloured brown and green, and uplines blue and yellow. Mm-hmm. And it merely identifies upline from down, although we know which they are anyway. It's the technical department who design the equipment that determine these principles.
They seem to change colour every couple of inches on the same wall.
Yes, because that's the boundary between one track circuit and another.
Right.
So you'll observe, if this was a shorter train, or indeed just a light locomotive, very short, it would hop from one track circuit to another very quickly. But because this is an 8-coach train with 2 power cars, it straddles the track circuit as is passing along, and then clears the one.
How do you know it's an 8-coach train?
Well, that's the standard formation of the Eastern Region HST sets. The cross-country sets are 7-coach trains. Mm-hmm. That's the ones from west of England to Scotland.
Now, I detect coming through here not just a kind of enthusiasm for the job. I detect that maybe you're a bit of a train buff anyway, are you?
Some would say so.
About ready 11 o'clock. 10, 6,
So John can't take his eyes away from the track.
No, he very briefly to look at his controls, but he's maintaining a vigilance out in the front there all the time, with the assistance of Ron, obviously. Still running under clear signals, good sign. On the left there you can see the remains of an old windmill. This is Egmanton. Because of the curvature of the line again, we've got this 115 mile an hour speed restriction. There'll be a line pass over the head shortly. That's a colliery line, goes to a power station to High Marham on the right. And that is in the region of Tuxford now. Because of the curvature of the track at this point, on the line side we've got fixed warning systems. Should anybody be working on the track, an alarm will be sounding when the train approaches, so they've got an extra warning because of high-speed trains.
Explain the bells to us.
Yes, that's associated with the AWS, the automatic warning system, and it's to do with the signals. As we approach each signal, you'll see a track magnet in the centre of the track, about 200 yards on the approach to a signal. If the signal is displaying green, we'll get a bell sound in the cab. Well, we're just on the approaches to Retford Station. The old Great Central line is now passing underneath. At one time used to be on the level, as we had at Newark, but because of the advent of high-speed trains, they decided to go underneath. We've had a 115 mile an hour speed restriction. We can now increase to 125.
9:26, should be through Retford by 9:27. It's 10.5 minutes run, should be in Doncaster about 9:38. It's due in at 9:39, so we're going to be a minute early with a bit of luck. So that's down to what we were talking about earlier, the recovery times, the rules of the route. He's got 4.5 minutes more than his normal running time between Retford and Doncaster, allowed in the timetable. And that's to cater for our 80 miles an hour temporary speed restriction just south of Grantham, and the possibly the other slack on the Peterborough patch.
So if you'll excuse the pun, there is a buffer as such built into the system, yeah. Now, he's just come through, what was that? Grove Road level crossing. Now, it doesn't have CCTV, which I know stands for closed circuit television, printed up there. How do you know that that crossing was safe for the train to come through?
Well, we didn't actually operate the crossing. There's still a gate box at Grove Road, which is an old type signal box, and his sole responsibility is dealing with the level crossing aspect. We let the trains proceed as long as they're safe to proceed under the signalling regulations. He lowers his barriers and clears our signals for us at the appropriate time in order that the train doesn't get delayed.
If there were a problem, how would he let you know?
He would give us a ring on the phone.
Right.
And then we would take whatever action was required.
Oh, we're pelting along here. We've almost come level with where we had to stop before and go back to the beginning.
That's it, yeah. Well, we're now approaching, it's Botany Bay level crossing. Curious name.
One of our CCTVs.
It's supervised by Ranskill. Now, Ranskill Gatebox, which is 12 miles south of Doncaster, is just dealing with the Yorkshire Pullman.
Right.
That's just passed, and is now in the process of clearing the signals for 1S16. You'll already observe that 165 signal is now in the green position there.
Yeah.
Because Torworth level crossing, he's got his barriers down there. He's now kept his own barriers down by the looks of things, and he's cleared 169.
Yeah, we're still proceeding along. We're just about attaining our maximum speed of 125. This is Ranskill. We've got 2 loops either side for recessing any freight trains that may get in the way of HSTs. Once again, one of the old mechanical blocks has been utilised as a gate box on the right. It's quite nice to see them pieces of architecture of the old LNER and GNR system. Still keeps a bit of character to the line, I think. As you can see ahead, we've got workmen on the track. Most important for the workmen to wear their high visibility clothing. It'll be some distance closer than this where we normally see them if they hadn't worn that clothing.
And they have to acknowledge.
Yes. John will sound a warning horn to them. It's up to the workmen then to acknowledge him by raising an arm above the head. John's easing the controller off at the moment. We're approaching Bawtry Viaduct where we've got 110 mile/hour speed restriction. We're still running under clear signals. John is now making a brake application for the 110 mile/hour.
When the train approaches Bawtry, you'll hear the bell ring. That's the annunciator for the signalman telling him that there's a train approaching and he's got to get his barriers down and signals cleared. Otherwise, the train won't get green aspects and will suffer some delay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we observe the crossing. This is Rosington. We observe the crossing as we lower the barriers.
So those barriers are down just now, presumably for 1D53, which is ahead of our train.
That's right, yeah.
Right. So what's going to happen with our train? When it approaches a certain point, we're going to hear a bell, you say?
That's right.
Right, and that's going to tell me that I've got to go and start getting those barriers down.
That's it.
And there's our train, the 1S16 Railwatch train, going through. Thanks for the one. Now, apparently we have some news on the Talisman, and for that, let's now join Rob Curling.
Well, the time now has just gone 9:30, and we've heard that our train out of King's Cross is now losing power. It's 3 minutes late passing Newark. The problem is not in our end of the train, not where the Railwatch nameplate is, but it's in the trailing car. The south end power car has got a fault on it. They're onto it here. Dave Scanlon is the HST maintenance controller, and he's just making arrangements now for when the train arrives here in York for engineers to get on board and fix the train. He's actually talking to the travelling fitters that I mentioned in the programme yesterday at the moment. As soon as he comes off the phone, I'll be asking Dave exactly what the problem is and how long it should take to fix. Dave, can you just tell us what the situation is at the moment?
Well, the depot inspector advises that the set is losing power, lost about 3 minutes running as far as Newark. He has made a request for a load reg demand module on the electrical control side, We have arranged for the module to be supplied at York by the fitters, and the depot inspector will fit the module.
And how long will that take to fit?
Less than 5 minutes.
Really, so the train can pick up time quite easily on its journey to Edinburgh once it's passed through here?
If the fault has been accurately identified, 5 minutes spent at York, and the train should then recover on its journey and make up time.
What time do you think it will get into York? Because it's obviously losing speed all the time.
Well, 10:04 booked arrival, 3 minutes now, maybe in by 10 minutes, 12 minutes past 10.
Great.
And at 10:15 we should have it on its way.
All right, Dave, thank you very much. There you are. You can see how this whole system works now. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Time is 9:34. And we're a minute and a half late.
So we've picked up about half a minute then.
Minute and a half, yeah. You can see a vast array of track appear shortly through this girder bridge. Got the line coming from Gainsborough and Lincoln on the right, going overhead now. You'll see a loco maintenance depot on the right, various yards containing the merry-go-round traffic that are associated with this area of the coalfields. The signals are now checking us down for Doncaster. The horn is sounding from the AWS. John has cancelled it out, and he's braking in accordance with the signals.
The next arrival at platform 4 will be the 9:40 Intercity 125 service, the Talisman to Edinburgh. Calling at York, Darlington, Newcastle and Edinburgh.
Here we are arriving at Doncaster Station.
What is it? Yeah. Probably taking the axles.
We're due in at 9:39. The time is now coming up to 9:38.
What a team.
So we've arrived just about 1 minute early. There we are, almost at the stand. John is in, he's bringing it nicely to a stop with no jolting of the train. Hopefully not to spill their soup and tea.
And here comes our train leaving Doncaster. 22 minutes after leaving there, the Talisman pulled into York. Here it comes round the curve. This is by our camera position on the entrance to York Station. Waiting on the platform for the Railwatch train is a replacement for the faulty piece of electrical equipment, the modules that have to be replaced. That's one of our new lightweight special effects cameras that we can get right by the railway. And into the platform comes the Railwatch train. Now the technician who's on board the train has already identified the fault, and with luck he'll be able to fit the new module while the train is running north towards Newcastle, and so that'll restore full power to the train. Well, fixing those minor faults on the move is better than taking the train out of service, and in our Railwatch programme tomorrow we'll follow a technical riding inspector as he troubleshoots on the move. Absolutely fascinating operation this. I'm sure you're enjoying our coverage this week. We'll go back to the main line fairly shortly, but let me now take you to somewhere else. I think, where are we going off to now? We go to Eskdale? We're off to Eskdale, right. We're going to head off now to the sort of place that you may well have dreamt about when you were a child as being the perfect railway line. It's north of York, and this is it. Glaisdale is the kind of place that seems to belong to another era, when the pace of life was a little more relaxed, when entertainment was homespun. But the entertainment here, like the signal box, is manual only.
started off in the London jazz clubs, where worked with some of the name bands, Nacanella, Freddie Randall and Joe Loss. Of course, railways weren't my first love, although I have very fond memories of them as a boy. The steam trains going through Hadley Woods on the East Coast Main Line. And, of course, holidays on them, where you used to thank the driver at the end of the journey. Well, this line is about 150 years old, and like a lot of rural railways, its raison d'etre was as a carrier of the minerals which were mined here. Ironstone, which supported the an ironworks at Gromont and another one here at Blaisdell. So until really the end of the First World War, freight still played a great part in this line. With the coming of road transport, of course, the emphasis was less on freight and more on passengers. Fortunately, the thing that kept the line in business was the school children, because the line serves the Esk Valley. Every village is on the level of the river, and to get out to the main road you have to climb a fierce hill, which of course in winter can become impassable to the road traffic. Had it not been for that, I think Dr. Beeching would have closed the line in 1964, but fortunately that kept the skeleton of the line running, and we still run 7 trains each way every day over a period of 14 hours. As you can see, we're not overworked, but it's a very pleasant place to be. Of course, I'm not actually allowed to play a saxophone at all in the signal box, but it is my day off.
Further down the line, through the North York Moors, lies Battersby Junction. The sign is promising enough, but the look of the station building suggests the welcome may have worn a bit thin. However, the sight of Battersby early in the morning confirms that a lack of trains doesn't make it any less a pleasant place to work. Steam locomotives used to pass through here carrying ironstone, coal and farm supplies, as well as many more people than are seen now. That water tank on the platform hasn't seen a steam engine in decades, but at least the goldfish are happy it's still there. The route running between Middlesbrough and Whitby provides a lifeline for the remoter communities in this area. It's only single track, so to avoid confusion, the drivers need a special token before they're allowed to proceed. Lever-framed boxes are a rarity on British Rail these days, the vast majority being power-operated, but a few still exist like these on branch lines. The signals are controlled by long stretches of wire, and it's quite a physical business handling those long metal bars. But you don't have to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger to cope. A set sequence of signals between Battersby and the next box down the line confirms that trains have arrived and that a section of track is now clear to accept a further train. But what kind of traffic now keeps Battersby from disappearing from the map?
We get quite a lot of, well, certainly a lot of tourists going to Whitby, quite a lot of ramblers. It drops off quite a bit in the winter time. There used to be 4 signal women working on the branch line, and the drivers christened it the Petticoat line.
That may sound to some reason alone to keep Battersby going, but sadly the boxes both at Glaisdale and Battersby will be closed later this year to allow for a new driver-operated signal scheme. Beautiful. Well, back on the main line, just as everything here at York seemed to be running well, we got trouble with a big T. We had reports of a train on fire. It wasn't quite as bad as that. The 852 from Edinburgh to King's Cross limped into York with power car problems. Penny Bustin was on the platform to meet it.
They had problems coming up from the north. The reported flames coming from the power car, but that was on account of braking for a permanent way speed restriction. They also reported trouble with a damper.
With me now, Andy Payne, who's the Deputy Chief Controller here at York. Andy, what's the situation at the moment?
Well, the situation is we're just receiving confirmation via the Senior Maintenance Controller that this 858 from Edinburgh is going to have to terminate at York with problems with both power cars. We have another service due in York, the 652 from Aberdeen, in fact, within about 10 minutes. We shall get the passengers out with their luggage, transferred to another platform onto that service, and they should be forward with a minimum of delay. And the other things that are being looked at is, can we get a replacement HST set from the Leeds Neville Hill depot into traffic, and to get the failed set across there for attention as soon as possible.
All right, Andy, thank you very much. British Rail reacting very quickly there.
Your attention, ladies and gentlemen. We do apologise to you. Due to mechanical failure, this train will terminate here at York. Would passengers please all change and make your way across the footbridge to platform 9B, where there will be another train to take you on to London. We apologise for the inconvenience that this causes you and regret the delay. Would passengers please all change from this train?
It became clear that there was no hope of fixing the failed leading power car on the spot. At lunchtime, the empty train limped out of York and it headed for Leeds and the Neville Hill Maintenance Depot. A replacement power car will be fitted there, and the empty train will finally go to King's Cross, where it will pick up passengers for a scheduled run to Glasgow this evening. Until then, London is one train short, and the train sets they do have will make earlier departures until the repaired train gets to them. Interestingly enough, the crew of the broken train, who left King's Cross at 6 this morning, only took over this train at Newcastle before it broke down at York, and they've now joined the transferred passengers on that train, which actually came from Aberdeen, riding to London. Confused? We were, but Rob Curling isn't. He's in control now. Rob.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, we've just heard here that we've got a points problem at Colton Junction, which is causing a few delays. We understand there's even more of a serious problem down at Doncaster, which is where we joined Paul Coyer.
Yes, thanks, Rob. A few apologies being broadcast here in the trains. We've had a major incident, which means that all traffic through Doncaster Station has come to a standstill. Roger Irving, who was guiding me through the journey of our train earlier, has had to go down onto the track. You'll see him there with his safety vest on there. And apparently we're having to move the signals and the buoys now by hand. With me is Roger Hibbard, the Area Operations Manager. Roger, what exactly has happened?
Well, Paul, we've had an electrical fault, which has effectively lit the track circuits up throughout the Doncaster Station area, and it's prevented us from moving the points and the signals on the panel that we've got over there.
So how long do you think it's going to take to remedy?
Well, we've actually got the signal and telegraph technicians working on the fault now. It could be repaired any minute now.
Okay. But, quietly confident?
Oh, yes, of it being repaired in the next few minutes.
Okay, yes. Roger, thank you very much indeed. Okay. Well, tomorrow here at Doncaster, we'll be going about a mile down the road to the Belmont Freight Yard. We'll be looking at the freight trains there and the shunting and how all the freight trains are put together. In the meantime, back to York Control and Rob.
Right, well, thank you very much, Paul. If we just look at some of the other problems that we've had here today. Earlier on, a train travelling from Harrogate to King's Cross was running bang on time until the passenger pulled the communication cord, which gave it an 18-minute delay. It turned out that it was a foreign visitor who actually pulled the communication cord in the lavatory. He thought he was flushing the loo, but instead all that happened was the train came to a grinding halt, so he was flushed with some embarrassment. Now, we've been following our train and our driver so far. We knew that it was running the 8 o'clock Talisman service from King's Cross to Edinburgh this morning. Having left York bang on time, it arrived at Edinburgh some 14 minutes late because of some problems north of Newcastle. It's currently on its way back to King's Cross from Edinburgh, where it left on time at 1:30. It's just now passing through Morpeth, 14 minutes late because of a problem with some level crossing gates. And yesterday, a tree brought down the overhead cables, which is causing problems between Berwick and Morpeth. So that means the train has now done some 500 of the 972 miles that it will be doing today. With that, back to you, Mike.
OK, Rob, thanks very much. I have John Swaby with me here in our studio at York, taking a breather. Your jaw dropped when you heard about the Railwatch train being delayed 40 minutes there.
That's right, but at least we got to York right time. It wasn't our fault, was it?
Now, what is your day going to entail for you? Because we're following you through the week now. This is a rest break for you now?
No, yes, I go back to King's Cross, and then tomorrow I'm going to work a parcel train diesel hauled with a Class 47 loco.
Right. We've had a dramatic day here, things that we just didn't expect to happen, and that latest news about the points problem near Doncaster. Is that a normal sort of day?
No, I should think 2 or 3 times a week in various places on British Rail this sort of thing happens. It's just that you learn to cope with the problems and get on with the job.
And looking at your journey up today, it was getting that point of view from your point of view there, I suddenly realised what an important job you have, the pressure. Well, you can't swerve to avoid things, can you?
Oh no, if they get in the way, we hit them. But fortunately, not very often that happens.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time this week. It's been very good of you. We'll catch up with you again tomorrow. So thanks, John.
Okay.
That's it for today. Railwatch will be back with you at the same time at about 2:15 tomorrow, taking a look at BR's freight operation, and we'll be going to Paul at Doncaster. Rob will be in the control room. Penny Bustin, I think we've sent off to Leeds, should be there. Malcolm McKay will have some more for you from the Scottish end of this East Coast main line. So please do join us at about 2:15 BBC One tomorrow for some more from the live Railwatch team. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.